I was just thinking about how our culture is so death phobic. And I think the root of that is the story that we've been given, this very kind of impoverished story about death and the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And what stories like the story of Orpheus can offer us in changing our whole kind of attitude toward life and death and love. There's something about that that just feels so necessary, you know?
I think so. I mean, we have in our modern world, we really have two major choices, which is patriarchal approaches to death and atheism, materialism, where death is the finality and you lose everything that you knew and you lose everything you love. And these are both anxiety causing. You're in Christianity, you're told if somebody doesn't believe exactly as you do, they're going to hell forever. And so you have this apprehension, am I doing the right thing? And you also have this weird thing they built into it of, I can do whatever I want as long as on Sunday I ask for forgiveness. And then God forgives me, and then I go out and I do horrible things again.
Right, or even worse, don't worry, I'll get the last rites on my deathbed, and that'll absolve me of
Exactly.
any sin.
Exactly, which just seems like absolute BS. I mean, what kind of world works like that? It just doesn't. And then if you're going the other way with it, it's even more anxiety provoking on a level, because you feel like, my God, what's the use of any of it if it's all just going to be effaced? And so what does it mean that I feel this tremendous love for someone or for my family or for whatever, and then it has no meaning. It's just impermanence, and it's all going to be gone. And so we're suffering this cruel fate while we live. It's an accident of evolution and biology. And these 2 points of view, I think, have contributed so much suffering and so many bad decisions in life in the history of the West. Now, we do have alternatives besides the Orphic hymns. I mean, like the last book that Tamara and I worked on, about the unobstructed universe books, known as the Betty books, which were super popular in the 30s and 40s. They were essentially spiritualist, but they were a very profound form of spiritualism. And they were teaching, much like Plato and much like the Chinese Secret of the Golden Flower, an alchemical Taoist text, that you can awaken a part of your soul that is timeless, that continues to exist outside time and is not mortal. So one of the sayings, Betty, the medium who produced most of the information in these books, she said that her mission was to prove the here-ness of immortality. Because people think of it as something that's out there, but no, at the core of our consciousness, of our individuality, is something that's outside time. And Carl Jung was so impressed by these books that he recommended them to his friends, and he admitted privately in a letter to a friend that he thought that Betty posthumously had provided proof of the survival of consciousness after death. So we've seen in the West these little areas where this stuff bubbles up. It's like where Plato said that philosophy is preparation for death, essentially, that you're learning to die to the concerns of this world so that you can be awake in the higher dimensions of your existence even before you die. And this is really at the heart, I think, of most of the esoteric traditions, is this idea of awakening that part of yourself. So they call it the over self or the higher self. And I think that in the Orphic tradition, it's so explicit that you have an actual death passport, these words that you're taught. And you're taught that if you live a pure life and you use these words, very Egyptian, by the way, this idea that your immortality is guaranteed, and and you don't have to come back. And coming back is considered, as it is in Platonism, which was very heavily influenced by Orpheus and Orphism, that coming back is not something you really want to do. There's a famous saying which was probably derived from Orphism, soma sema, which is the body a tomb. And so it's said that we, the so-called living, are actually the dead, because we're living in this tomb of flesh that obscures our timeless selves, and then when we die, we are liberated into our true selves, where we have this kind of infinite consciousness. And so often you see these reports of how people have near-death experiences, or they have spiritual experiences, and then they can't believe that their lives, which so completely absorbed them, could have done so, because they seem so two-dimensional once you achieve that higher level of consciousness. And you don't want to be locked down here. And it creates a great irony. Tamara always used to talk about the irony of how we have now these oligarchs who just want to achieve physical immortality. And being a punk rocker, she put it colorfully, she'd say, "Hey, moron, you're already immortal. Your consciousness is immortal. Why would you want to be connected to a shit bag for eternity? Like, it's crazy. Or, I'm going to put myself in a machine. Like that's, you have the freedom of consciousness. It's infinite. And yet you're going to destroy life on Earth so that you can achieve this sort of fake material immortality."
Yeah, or somehow capture my consciousness in whatever crude way and imprison it in a computer box.
Exactly. As if your consciousness isn't there. And I mean, this is one of the things that amazed us about the Betty books. And then Tamara actually demonstrated this, because in imitation to Betty, of Betty, she has made her continuing presence very well known to many people. And her wit is there, her memories are there. When I receive messages through other people from me, she's pinpointing aspects of our lives. It's totally her sense of humor.
Right, so the personality is preserved.
Exactly. This is a demonstration of it. And it's a surreal experience, but it should be a natural experience, because it's really what we are, and it's our human heritage to have that communication, but it's been very carefully controlled, especially in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other aspect of the Orphic tradition that makes it remarkable, and again, like quite shamanic, is this reverence for nature and the personification of nature. So this like animistic attitude toward the world is going to change how you act in the world, like how you treat the natural world.
Very much. And that's one of the worst things about fundamentalism, that this idea that God gave us nature just to use up, and that it has no value in itself.
Or exercise dominion over.
Exactly. Instead of having this rapport. And the experience of life, when you have a rapport and a respect for nature, is very different. It's like in Manly Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages, the dedication of the book is to the rational soul of the world. And this is a suggestion that when you recognize it and you live accordingly, that the world is collaborating with you. And he always used to say, many people approached him wanting him to be their teacher, their guru, and he refused everyone. And he would always tell them the same thing: life is your teacher, nature is your teacher, literally. But if you have the idea that nature is this, either a jungle where the strongest survive, or it's just an immaterial nothingness that we can do anything we want with, then you don't have the ability to have that collaboration with nature, and you live blindly. And so you don't understand things like magical synchronicities that can change your life, and the way that nature, in a sense, dances with people who have a love and respect for it. I watched that throughout my life with Tamara, because she was someone who she treated plants and animals as equals. She had love for all nature and appreciation for its beauty and its wisdom, and nature treated her that way back. And it was like beautiful to see this. It was a completely different kind of life from almost everything going on around us. And people often commented on how magical she was and how magical her influence was. And I think it came from that. It came from this deep love of nature.
Yeah. And the animistic attitude has within it a kind of innate morality or ethics, like, seeing nature as alive, and with agency, and someone you can be in relationship with, is going to change the way that you behave and the way that you treat nature, not just as a resource to be extracted. Or the notion of reincarnation, that cow could be your mother reincarnated. So be careful of how you act. There's an ethics in that. There's a morality in that.
Very
and
much.
That's something that, it's not inscribed in stone tablets, thou shalt. It comes out of relatedness.
Exactly. And you have in the West, for instance, the indigenous belief that consciousness underlies all existence, that everything, even a rock, has a soul, was named by Western academia the pathetic fallacy. I mean, just like how loaded that term is. It's pathetic. Like the hatefulness of calling it that. You could say it's primitive fallacy even, but it's pathetic. And then you also have...
that it's a fallacy.
Yes, as well. And then you have the psychiatric community, where you've got to be careful. I mean, people who have routine communication with those who have died and gone onward are considered psychotic. And so much of what is part of this natural animist relationship with life has been turned into psychological disorders that need to be treated. In the same way that you can see, what's happening now, the very drugs that were used, say, in the 1960s, so that you could tune in and tune out and drop out, or whatever the saying was, and you were having fun, you were opening your consciousness, and now they're extracting chemistry from that is merely making people able to cope with the fact that their jobs suck and their lives are awful. But if I take this, I can do what I have to do. It's so symbolic to me of what's gone wrong in society. Even the sacred substances that nature provided are being perverted in order to serve the purpose of control, and just to make you able to cope with unjust circumstances, unfairness, and with the lack of connection to sexuality, to ancestors, to nature. And so there's a strange spirit in Western civilization and patriarchy, I think, that has created a soul sickness. And we can see the way it's afflicting the world right now, the way that thuggery has become uplifted, in a sense, and that power for its own sake is celebrated, and we see that a significant, millions of Americans, for example, support someone who is clearly a liar, clearly someone who believes in might is right, and who is abusive, and openly so, and they celebrate it as a kind of strength. But that's not strength. Like, bullies aren't strong. And you have influencers out there who are convincing a generation of boys that if you want to be a successful male, if you want to have a successful relationship and get girls and such, you've got to be a bully. And this is manifestly false. Even in the history of martial arts, for example, bullies aren't good fighters. Bullies are weak. Bullies are emotional. Bullies are unable to draw from themselves what is really required to be a man, which is to be able to protect, to nurture, to be calm, to treat others with justice, and to apply violence only when it's most necessary to protect the good of the community. And so they cloak these really despicable acts as protecting the community, when in fact what they're doing is destroying the community. So it's interesting times.
Yeah.